All right, everybody, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular monthly board meeting of the Alameda County Water District on April 11th, 2023, 6 p.m. And so I will ask the district secretary to please take the roll.
Directors Gunther,
Here.
Akbari,
Here.
Huang, here, Weed,
Here.
and Sethy.
Here. And Elvia, you are our special honoree and guest tonight. How about if you lead us in the salute to the flag?
More than you bargained for.
I pledge.
Ready? Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and Thank you very much.
And so I will ask before we go to public comments, I will ask the general manager to please take us through some housekeeping items.
Sure thing. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for being here, and that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. 5-minute limit is customary. However, I, as board president, may adjust the actual time allotted to accommodate the number of speakers. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so when it comes up. Do we have any members of the public that wish to make comment at this time? Let's see, one hand raised. You want to come up on an item not on the agenda?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I didn't cover that in my housekeeping remarks. So thanks for the reminder.
And turn up the lighting. We have one member of the public online who wishes to speak, Mr. Ken Nishimura.
Thank you very much, President Sethy. I have 2 items to bring to the attention of the board that are not directly related to items.
Hold on. We don't have proper audio here.
Sorry, Mr. Nishimura. We just had low volume here in the boardroom, so we wanted to turn it up a bit so we could hear you better. I think we'll go ahead and give it a try.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, President Sethy. I have 2 items to bring to the attention of the board. The first is, I believe I've asked this request before, but it would be very useful if the Zoom link for these meetings was made available without having to download the entire board packet. The board packet is often several hundred pages in length and quite large file. And for those that just want to have the Zoom link, it's quite cumbersome at times, depending on one's internet connection capabilities, to have to download the entire board packet just to get one Zoom link. The second item I'd like to bring to the attention to the board is I've read through the board packet, and although there are reports about precipitation, water production, and groundwater recharge, there is no data that I could find that actually reflects the state of the Niles Cone aquifer. That is, how full is it? So if that information could be made available in the board packet in the future, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, are there any other boardroom audience members or online participants that wish to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public comments and we will move on to the consent calendar. And I would ask a board member to add items from the action calendar to the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to add items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, and 5.7 to the consent calendar.
I'll second.
So let's take a vote.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang, aye, Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye.
I'll,
Okay,
I'll move consent calendar as amended.
thank you. I'll second.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang, aye, Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. I just wanted to make a quick comment on something related to 5.4, if I may. I have no objection to us approving this, but it's kind of alarming to me how expensive this quagga and zebra mussel prevention program has become, where we're one of 4 participants at Lake Del Valle, and it's over $400,000 just for 1 year of service, and close to $50,000 at Quarry Lakes. I'm wondering in the future if we could bid out competitively for these services. It's the only comment I have.
Let me add to that if I might. The cost of providing a limited amount of boat recreation on the Quarry Lakes, so it's driving that cost. But we're reviewing the boats that are being brought in fishing in the Quarry Lakes. You might want to look at what is the cost benefit of allowing fishing and boat activity on the Quarry Lakes. When you compare the cost of operating a quagga mussel program. When it gets into the millions of dollars per year for a relatively modest number of visitors.
Yes, those are good comments. I remember my predecessor, Art Lampert, on the board also expressing the same comments in the past. So we now move on to a special item on the agenda, item 5.8, a resolution honoring Elvia Buffy upon her retirement from district service. So I'm going to turn it over to our general manager and staff.
Okay, thank you, President Sethy. And yes, I am thrilled to have this opportunity to have you all here, and what a great turnout. It's a great occasion. Elvia has been here and part of ACWD's family for over 33 years. And so to have you, Elvia, and your family here just makes it even sweeter. But I'll turn it over to our acting director of operations and maintenance to read the staff report.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, Board President Sethy, other board members, staff, members of the public. So even though I'm just filling in, it is my great honor and privilege to be able to recognize Elvia Buffy on her retirement after over 33 years of service, as Mr. Stevenson mentioned. In July, it'll be 34 years, I believe. And she actually came to us on a work experience program in 1986. So cumulatively, she has more years with the district than just the 33 that we have on record. She's held a few different positions during the course of her career here at ACWD. She spent the bulk of her time as a customer service representative in the finance department. And over the last few years, she's been with the Operations and Maintenance Department as an office assistant too, where she's utilized those customer service skills because most of the technical and difficult inquiries from the public come to us. So she's got a lot of experience. She's always looking for the solution. She's very positive, got a great sense of humor. I know I'm certainly going to miss her. 33 years of institutional knowledge is always tough to see go out the door. But I'm very happy for you that you're able to retire. Such a milestone to achieve. And so I know you're going to enjoy that. I do want to add 2 points to this. So Elvia is currently the longest tenured employee with the district. So she holds that title for another week and a half. So, and then sort of as a side note to that, she also is the last of the hires from the 80s. So she started in officially started in 89. So anybody that still works for the district from here on out, well, after a week and a half from here on out, started in 1990 or later. So just wanted to share that. So with that, I will read the recommendation for the board to consider. And the recommendation is by motion, adopt a resolution honoring Elvia Buffy and expressing appreciation for over 33 years of dedicated service to the district. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Should we go to board comments first, or?
I think it'd be appropriate to go ahead and take action and then see if Miss Buffy has any remarks she'd like to make.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. So if you would read the resolution, I don't have it in front of me right now.
Sure. Well, Mr. Stevenson, Dan Stevenson, no relation. Would you mind just reading the, oh, you want to read the resolution itself?
Yeah,
Oh,
okay. Here we
okay.
go.
Yeah, there you go.
So this is the resolution that we will vote on. And surprisingly, everybody voted yes already. How remarkable. Resolution number 23-029 of the Board of Directors of the Alameda County Water District honoring Elvia Buffy upon her retirement from district service. Whereas the Board of Directors of Alameda County Water District desires to officially express the district's appreciation for the services so ably rendered by Elvia Buffy for serving continuously as an employee from July 17th, 1989 to her retirement on April 22nd, 2023. And whereas during her more than 33 years of service, she consistently demonstrated a high degree of dedication and loyalty to the district and to her fellow employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Alameda County Water District that there be and hereby is proclaimed individually and on behalf of the people of this district an expression of appreciation for the distinguished service of Elvia Buffy in her official duties as an employee of this district. Be it further resolved that this resolution of official recognition and appreciation be spread upon the official records of the district. Passed and adopted this 11th day of April, 2023 by the following vote of Directors Gunther, Akbari, Huang, Weed, and Sethy. Nays, none, and absent, none. So we honor you with this resolution this evening. And
Well, you
might want to officially
take the
adopt it.
actual
Yes.
action.
Okay.
Yeah.
so let's officially ask, I officially would like to ask for a
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
so
Directors Gunther,
Grateful for your service, yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and
Thank you
Sethy.
for your service.
yes.
Do we get to make comments?
Congratulations.
Yeah, I think it might be appropriate for the board to go ahead and make some comments first
Yes.
before we take photos.
Director Weed,
Oh,
start us off.
long time with the district. And, I've had a little bit of time here, but yours certainly I dwarfed in comparison the amount of service you've done for us. And starting off as early on, our time and staying with the industry is something hopefully we can use as an example for expand on that program, bring it back again. So thank you very much.
So Elvia, as a meter reader and customer service representative, you were the face of ACWD. You interface with our customers. You represent us so well. As an OA, you are the thread that holds together different departments to make sure nothing get missed, make sure all the difficult questions get answered. Thank you for your service, and thank you to your family. I just come to understand that this is actually you actually have an ACWD family in more ways than one. Not only you are a member of ACWD, you actually have family members that is current and past employees. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your family's service. And a big thank you to your family for lending you to us for 33 plus years. We really appreciate your service. Have a great time in the next stage of your life. Explore new journeys. And remember to come back to see us. Thank you. I'm ready.
Oh yeah, I'll echo some of the similar comments. You touched on so many different parts of the operations of ACWD. And like Director Huang mentioned, in many cases, you were kind of our first line of defense. You were the face of ACWD. So with your retirement, it's not just us congratulating you, but you've left such a tremendous mark on the community. And we're very thankful for that as well. 33 years is a long time. It's difficult to say goodbye, but of course, we're very excited about what you're going to get to continue doing in the next chapter of your life. And like Director Huang also mentioned, we're very happy to hear that so many members of your family have joined the team here at ACWD and have just been dedicated to service to the community in different capacities. So we're very appreciative of the work that you've done and very happy that your family could join us today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. People don't realize what the district does, how we do it. It's kind of that back behind the scenes, and it's the staff. Everybody out there, the staff is excellent. And 33 years, that's fantastic. Hate to see you go, but on the other hand, I'm happy. You're going out, it's great. I wish you all the best in your retirement. Enjoy it. You deserve it. And yeah, we'll miss having you here, but others will step up too. And obviously the family, you've all been here. It's great. Hopefully you get a few more. So anyway, good luck. Thank you so much.
Elvia, what I will treasure most are all of the non-water related conversations that we've had over the years, especially when it came to sports and what's going on in the rest of the world, what we were concerned about, what we were happy about. And I see Patty there in the back of the room, and she and I and you could always talk about the Giants and 49ers, what was going on. And as I was contemplating your career and that of other family members, started to realize it must be 100 years of service on behalf of your family to this district. It's got to be the longest that I'm aware of.
They're over there doing the math. They're thinking it's pretty darn close. It's a dynasty for sure.
So we will welcome you back at all of our picnics and Christmas celebrations and things like that. And I wish you the best of success in whatever you want to do with your playtime now. Okay. So, shall we go all down and take a couple of pictures?
Sure, you did ask if Ms. Buffy has any remarks they'd like to make before. Sure.
Am I going to stand with you?
Yeah, right at the podium there.
I'm going to kind of stand with you. You can stand wherever you want. I want to kind of address it to everybody that's here because everybody that's here is family to me. Everybody here is family to me. I'm very grateful for being here because it's a family to me. I had my babies here, my children. I had surgeries, very big surgeries here, and all from Toronto. They told me, don't you worry about it. We're going to make sure that you get taken care of. So I've been taken care of in the water district. It's been a wonderful place to be. It's family. Everybody cares about everybody here. There's nothing else I can say, but thank you. I'm grateful for it. My family has been very supportive. My bosses, everybody has. It's a wonderful place to be, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And I'll never forget it. And I will always, you'll be seeing me soon. So, but I'm very happy, and everybody's been supportive. Ed took my dad to the hospital for us one time. That was wonderful. We were freaking out, and said, I'm taking you guys. And he, no questions, just right away, just goes over there for Ed. He was being crazy, and we're just like, but that's what the water district is about. It's about water, but it's also about family and caring about all the employees. When there's any other things like personal life stuff, if they have an issue, they make sure and take care of us. And I've been taken care of from this place, so it's my other family too. So I'm very grateful, and thank you very much for doing this for me. So now I can go have some more fun. But thank you again, and I'll come back. If you ever need a tip, here I am.
You don't go too far away. We've got some photos to take.
Oh.
Yeah, the board members, please follow me.
Oh, yeah. No, that's it. Okay.
You all are welcome to stay if you'd like. We're going to talk about replenishment assessments next. And remember, in retirement, you'll have plenty of time to watch every ACWD board meeting video and everything else too. So whatever is your pleasure.
Yeah. No, thank you very much.
And family. It's great to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Finish up quickly. You didn't want the mode.
Two more departments. She hasn't worked for you.
Right. The least you could have done was stayed long enough to work for every division.
Wow. Maybe the family's got it covered.
That's true.
Okay.
So tonight, we're going to move on to one of our more exciting topics, which is public hearing and resolutions on replenishment assessment for FY 2023-2024. As board president, this is one of the more challenging meetings because I am required by law to read a very lengthy script. And so just for formality, this is a public hearing on the replenishment assessment rate. Alameda County Water District is conducting this meeting via in-person, Zoom webinar, and by telephone. And if anybody has any comment, I will, and the board will welcome that at the appropriate time. So, on behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to welcome the public and your participation in this evening's public hearing. This public hearing will be on the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment rate for groundwater pumped or extracted for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation. Thank you for attending in person, online, and by phone. Again, the purpose of this public hearing is to consider the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment rate, which only applies to the operation of water wells to extract groundwater, not to most customers who receive their water from ACWD's distribution system. Now I'd like to review the ground rules for the public hearing. 1, the process. I will open up the public hearing and ACWD staff will make a brief presentation. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments and/or protests. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments and/or protests, the board will request input from staff, respond to questions or comments that were raised by the public, deliberate on the issues, and then close the public hearing. 2, under public comments, each person has 5 minutes to comment. We will require strict compliance with this time limit so that everyone is treated the same way. Again, staff will provide you with 15 seconds advance warning and will let you know when time is up. Speaker requests, since this hearing is being conducted both in person, online, and by teleconference, persons who wish to make public comments can indicate so verbally and by raising your hand in Zoom when we open the public comment portion of the hearing. For those participating in person, there are speaker cards in the back of the boardroom. If you haven't already done so, please submit a speaker card to the district secretary. Completing a speaker card is voluntary. However, if you haven't already submitted a written protest and would like your comment to be counted as a protest against the proposed increase, the speaker card can be used for that purpose. So, lastly, before we open up the public hearing, if you are participating online and by phone, the district secretary will unmute remote meeting participants who have raised their hand when making public comments. Please be sure to unmute your own phone or computer microphone so that you may be heard. For those participating online that may not have a microphone on their computer, please dial in by phone at the number given on the agenda. If you are participating online and we are unable to hear you during the public comment portion of the hearing, please use the chat box feature of the Zoom interface to get the attention of the district secretary. Please state your name and service address when making a verbal comment. Providing this information is voluntary. However, if you haven't already submitted a written protest and would like your comment to be counted as a protest against the proposed increase, stating your name, service address, and intent to protest can be used for that purpose. So we will now open up the public hearing and staff will now make a presentation. I ask you to refrain from asking questions or making comments until the public comment portion of the public hearing. So I'll turn it over to the general manager and staff.
Thank you, President Sethy. Staff's presentation this evening will be relatively short. The board and the public have previously received an extensive presentation on the details here, but we do want to provide just the context that's needed for the board to take action on this item and make sure the public has the information that they may be looking for. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our Acting Director of Water Resources, Ms. Michelle Walden.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Tonight's public hearing will be on the proposed increase to the replenishment assessment rate for groundwater pumped or extracted for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation as previously discussed. As provided in the District's Replenishment Assessment Act, a public hearing must be held on the second Tuesday in April for the purposes of determining whether and to what extent the cost of replenishing groundwater supplies within the district during fiscal year 2023-24 will be funded by a replenishment assessment. As the board may wish to take action immediately following tonight's public hearing, staff has prepared the remaining 3 resolutions required for the replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2023-24. To provide some background on this item, on November 10th, 2022, the board ordered the preparation of the 2023 survey report on groundwater conditions, also known as the survey report as provided in Section 7 of the District's Replenishment Assessment Act. As a result, the following actions took place. On February 1st, 2023, letters were sent to all interested parties identified as part of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, informing them that the board would be discussing and considering items pertaining to the Replenishment Assessment Act at the February 9th, March 9th, and April 11th, 2023 regular Board of Director meetings. At the February 9th, 2023 regular Board of Directors meeting, the board, 1, received the completed survey report and the 2022 groundwater monitoring report. Number 2, it also declared its intent to raise funds by replenishment assessment in fiscal year 2023-24 and scheduled a public hearing for April 11th, 2023. As required by Proposition 218, affected well owners, operators, and owners of property with production wells were provided written notice of the proposed increase in the replenishment assessment rate for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation uses, at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. The notice was also posted on the district's website. In addition to the information on the proposed increase, the notice included the date, time, and instructions with remote access information for the public hearing and stated that there is a 120-day statute of limitations for challenging any new, increased, or extended fee or charge. On March 9th, 2023, staff, specifically Mr. Michael Hallowell, who's in the audience tonight, presented to the board the report's findings and basis on the recommended replenishment assessment. Staff reviewed its recommendation for a 4.9% increase in the replenishment assessment rate for all uses other than agricultural or municipal recreation use in fiscal year 23-24. This would increase the rate from $513 to $538 per acre foot of groundwater pumped. Notice of the date, time, and instructions with remote access information for the public hearing was published in the newspaper, the East Bay Times, as required by the Replenishment Assessment Act. All of the documents referred to above are included on the district's website, www.acwd.org. Tonight's hearing is being held in person and virtually. All interested parties may be heard in support of or opposition to the proposed replenishment assessment, the survey report, or the board's determination. Prior to the beginning of tonight's board meeting, the district has not received any comments on the replenishment assessment. For setting the replenishment assessment for the coming fiscal year, the Replenishment Assessment Act specifies the actions that must be taken through board resolution no sooner than the close of the public hearing, but no later than the second Tuesday of May. The resolutions, 1, contain the findings that update groundwater conditions and state the amount of replenishment assessment funds needed next fiscal year. 2, set the replenishment assessment rates, $8 per acre foot for agricultural and municipal recreation uses, which is the maximum allowed under the Replenishment Assessment Act, and $538 per acre foot for all other uses. And finding that the modifications to the replenishment assessment are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, provide procedures and statement forms. Should the board wish to extend the hearing or take additional time to consider the resolutions, the board may schedule special board meetings in order to meet the deadline stipulated in the Replenishment Assessment Act. In other words, the public hearing must be completed on or before the first Tuesday of May 2nd, and the resolutions adopted on or before the second Tuesday of May, which is May 9th. Approval of this item is consistent with strategic goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies, and strategic goal 3, improve the district's financial stability and transparency. So tonight's recommendation before the board is to conduct a public hearing as scheduled and receive comments from the public on the proposed replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2023-24. Then by motion, adopt the following required resolutions. Stating findings, 1, stating findings and determining need for replenishment assessment. 2, levying a replenishment assessment and finding the replenishment assessment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, providing procedures for payment of replenishment assessment. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Walden. And at this point, I will open up the public comment portion of the hearing and invite anyone in our audience or online to please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Not seeing any in the audience. Do we have any speaker cards that were submitted? None. No hands raised online. And so if there are no speakers at all, has the district secretary received any written comments?
No, I have not.
Okay. So does any director have any questions of staff or legal counsel based on questions or comments presented by the public? Or non-participation of the public?
I can make a note of the history of this item, but I'll wait until later.
Okay. By the way, Director Weed, I'm going to cover that under my director comments from my visit up to Sacramento. I know what you're referring to, but you can add to it, please. Okay, so are there any other comments from the general manager, legal counsel, staff?
No additional comments or input from staff.
Mike, again, you did a wonderful job on your report, as always. And I just want to have us as a board extend our appreciation to you for all the hard work that you put in on that annual effort.
Oh, you make a note that I believe 96% of the funds to be raised under this provision are being paid by Alameda County Water District to Alameda County Water District.
Quite a might have a question. So,
That percentage is correct. It's 95.3%.
Director Weed, why don't you go ahead and raise that issue right now? This is the subject matter at hand.
Well, there are several issues I'm sure you're referring to, but there was a time when this item required the board to convene in the Washington High School auditorium because of the community interest. It strikes me that one selection of a law which capped the agricultural, then added municipal. Coincidentally, the attorney for the district was also the mayor of the local city that benefit from this at $8 per acre foot. Subsequently reduced that amount of public angst and interest. So we have now a program where the percentage that is being covered by the water district itself, paying to ourselves, is, I'll let you probably give the exact number, but high. And so there's a marginal amount. They did have an interest with the duck club that claimed the $8 per acre foot limit and took us to court. Spent almost $100,000 in legal fees, and lost. We defended the charging them the full rate, not give them the recreation rate, even though they had several retired judges and a number of retired council people on their as members of the duck club. Yeah. So there have been some interesting issues of this over the past. It's interesting to see now. It has someone's run its course. Hopefully, the issue of the $8 fee can be revisited, and that's a different topic.
The old water district was located just a couple of blocks away from Washington High School, and so and I used to attend those meetings with my dad. The boardroom only could hold about 24 people, maybe 40 standing and seated. But there were times when there were hundreds of people that came to a board meeting, and so they would have to go over to the auditorium at Washington High School. And the Replenishment Act was a big issue in the community. It affected a lot of people. So it was not unheard of to have 300 people at a board meeting in the auditorium at Washington High School, believe it or not. That's the old agricultural community. I will leave my other comments to director comments on the or about the date of this meeting and the necessity for it moving forward. So with that, we're going to close the public hearing. I will officially say the public hearing is now closed. And so we will consider as a board adopting the required resolutions on the replenishment assessment for FY 2023-2024. And there are 3 different resolutions. And so I'd like to help the staff to take us through each one as we go on.
Sure, I could just kind of fill in the staff recommendation. The first resolution is stating findings and determining the need for the replenishment assessment. The second one is levying a replenishment assessment and finding the replenishment assessment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And then thirdly, providing procedures for payment of replenishment assessment.
So can you guide us through each resolution one by one as for voting purposes?
If the board chooses, you can take up all 3 resolutions at one time and just make the recommendation to approve the staff recommendation. That will encompass all 3. If a director wants to vote differently, then we should take them separately.
Do I have a motion from a board member to?
But I will move to adopt the 3 resolutions as outlined by the general manager.
Second.
I'll second.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang, Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. So we'll turn to, thank you again, Mike, for all your work. Item 5.10, authorization of agreement for financial audit services, and I'm presuming that I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Wonderly.
That's right. Mr. Wunderlich, our Director of Finance and Admin, will lead this item.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. The district's current agreement for financial audit services with the PUN Group ended with the completion of their prior audit for fiscal year ending 2022. The district has worked with the PUN Group for 4 years, and we did decide to solicit proposals for financial audit services to ensure we continue to receive the most efficient and effective services. After a proposal review process, Baker Tilly US LLP received the highest evaluation score for these services, and sufficient funding will be included in future budgets for this expenditure. And the proposed contract was reviewed by the Finance and Administration Committee March 21st, 2023. And authorization of this agreement will assist the district in achieving strategic plan goal 3.3, promote financial transparency. The recommendation by motion: 1, authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement for financial audit services with Baker Tilly US LLP for the fiscal years ended June 30, 2023 and 2024 for a total cost not to exceed $268,300. And 2, authorize the general manager to exercise up to 3 one-year option terms if the services are satisfactory to the district for an aggregated amount not to exceed $744,800. So that's a brief overview of this item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So why don't I kick off this item quickly by stating that in the Finance Committee, both Director Weed and I really like this firm because it's one of the top 10 accounting firms in the entire United States. We've never had the prestige of an audit service like this before. And I think we both agreed that in the future, if we ever go out for any additional bond financing, that this would really help strengthen the merit of our of what we're trying to put forward. So I am entirely in favor of approving the board of the staff recommendation, and I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Any board discussion?
I would support it. I was frustrated with the prior audit and they failed to interview the board members in the process of doing the audit. And the timeliness was, I think, also in question. But this, we have a bigger firm with local representation and looking forward to it.
Are there any public comments at all on this item? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Do we have a vote?
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. Item 5.11, authorization to enter into a contract for employee safety training and program management. And I'll turn that over to our general manager.
Yep, and I will in turn turn it over again to Mr. Wunderlich.
Great, thank you. So the district is seeking to improve its overall employee safety and loss control program by providing comprehensive support for its program, including conducting safety audits, updating safety policies and programs, and improving safety training. And staff's determined that outside support is needed to implement these improvements. And so approval of this item will help achieve district strategic plan goal 4, improve workforce recruitment, maintain retention, and enhance employee engagement. The recommendation is by motion. 1, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Do All Safety for a 2-year base term for a total not to exceed amount of $400,000. And 2, execute up to 3 1-year extensions for a potential contract life of 5 years and a total not to exceed amount of $775,000. So what staff is envisioning is that a number of safety audits and plans would be developed within the first couple of years, and then the training would be available through all 5 years of the contract. And this is really, I'll say, an attempt to kind of really focus on kind of on-site workplace safety, especially as we come to a situation where COVID is more of an endemic phase and less of a focal point in our safety programs. We're looking to really focus on these more traditional safety training and program aspects. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments from the audience? Seeing none and none online. Any board comments? Somebody like to make a motion in favor of the staff recommendation?
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Directors Gunther,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. So we come to the heart of our agenda, item 5.12, an ordinance to consider rescinding ordinance number 2021-01, declaring a water shortage emergency and adopting water use regulations, restrictions, and guidelines for the water shortage emergency. So I'll turn this over again to our general manager.
Thank you, President Sethy. And I can say that this is one of those items that staff has been looking forward to bring to the board for a really long time. We've been dealing with this exceptional drought for years now. We're thrilled that we're in a position to be able to bring this item to the board. We know that drought is really tough on our customers. We've asked them for a lot. They have come through. We wouldn't be able to get to the position we're in right now in the way that we have without our customers supporting us. It's also, drought is tough on staff and on the organization. We've had a lot of resources and money and other priorities have been affected by the drought. So we are thrilled to be in this position. But I will turn it over now again to our Acting Director of Water Resources, Ms. Walden.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. On December 9th, 2021, the Board of Directors adopted ordinance number 2021-01, declaring a water shortage emergency and adopting water use regulations, restrictions, and guidelines for the water storage emergency. After 3 years of drought, statewide water supplies, including the district's imported water supplies, have been significantly replenished due to several intense atmospheric river storm events. As a result of customer conservation, water supply availability, and the improved hydrologic conditions, the district's water supply outlook has greatly improved. Due to this improvement, as well as the district's financial condition, the board took action at a special meeting of the Board of Directors on March 21st, 2023 to rescind the drought surcharge effective April 1st of 2023. Staff has continued to monitor the water supply conditions and the drought-related activities taken by the state. Mr. Thomas Nizer, Water Supply and Planning Manager, will present on tonight's item and will also be providing the drought update that we would normally cover under General Manager's reports or 6.4.1. Approval of this item is consistent with Strategic Plan Goal 2.1, maintain and enhance sustainability and reliability of local and regional water supplies. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Nizer.
Thank you. So, well, that thorough introduction, let's just jump right into the weather update. Start with our local precipitation. As everybody knows, we've had some near record-setting rainfall. For time of year, we're fourth wettest on record. It's a chart which you've all come quite accustomed to seeing. In the past week, we have had 1/10 more rainfall. Not changing the outcome too much, though. Otherwise, statewide drought monitoring, these conditions we've been presenting to the board continuously, as we see, have vastly improved, with still some regions of the state in drought conditions. And this is notwithstanding the areas which are dependent on the Colorado River system. But these are areas that are still experiencing local drought and are projected to continue to be in some state of drought at the end of this year. But as we've all been eagerly watching the filling of key reservoirs in the state, most important to the water district as a state water contractor, of course, being Lake Oroville. The reservoir status is quite healthy throughout the state. As far as our imported supplies, the San Francisco Public Utility Commission, in fact, today voted unanimously to take action to rescind the water shortage emergency pending or upon removal or modification by the state. So the board took that action. It did also remove the drought surcharge that's applied to San Francisco retail customers. The Department of Water Resources recently declared a 75% Table A allocation. This is nicely up from the 5% we were given last year. And we are actively managing our local water supplies at very healthy conditions. In addition to that, in response to the drought, as mentioned by the general manager, our customers have stepped up and helped us achieve that 15% conservation target and are continuing to use water very wisely, reflecting, of course, the prevailing wet conditions, more so than we've seen in past years. The outlook for weather it's actually drying up. Just last week, the powers that be have decided that we're at the end of any significant precipitation. There might be a little bit of more moisture, but there's no indication that we would experience any more larger storms. April, as we know, and May can be still quite wet, but it's looking to be in the more normal range moving forward. Other updates, as mentioned, Governor Newsom on March 24th announced an update to drought condition, or update based on the weather conditions. As Bob Dylan would say, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. He ended the call for 15% statewide conservation. There are still prohibitions in place on the wasteful use of water. So notably, the State Water Resource Control Board, which took action under direction from the governor and declared the level 2 implementation requirements of the water shortage contingency plans, That action is still separate from the governor's declaration. So while the governor has rescinded a statewide call for 15% conservation, the hammer, so to speak, of the State Water Resource Control Board is still in effect. It is set to expire on June 10th, but right now there hasn't been any indication that they plan to do anything to modify or rescind that ahead of the 10th. So we're in an interesting situation where the governor's broadcast one set of conditions, but we still have some regulations in place that we have to uphold. As mentioned, ACWD passed an ordinance in 2021 of December. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. We just had it in the introduction to this evening, but it declared a local water shortage emergency and a call for 15% reduction in demands. And we included several new prohibitions on the wasteful use of water beyond what are existing sort of full-time measures based on the district's ordinance 2008-01. So the status of our own ordinance, which was premised on an inability to meet the normal demand for water, customer conservation achievements have significantly helped us conserve what limited supplies we had. But as mentioned, the hydrologic conditions for the district have vastly improved, and we now have sufficient supply to meet normal customer levels of demand. With the we do have the governor's March 24th announcement rolling back some of those drought requirements, but we do have the the state board's order still in place. But as a result of this status, we're in a position as a district to consider rescinding ordinance 2021-01, effective once the level 2 State Water Resources Control Board regulation is terminated or expires. So for discussion this evening, should the board act to rescind this, staff would continue to enforce the district's ordinance on wasteful use of water. This is our permanent ordinance that exists outside of drought times. We would continue to inform our customers if they are in violation of any state water waste prohibitions, which remain in effect. We would update language in our notification materials to reflect the current status of drought recovery in the local region and with our imported supplies. We'd continue to implement our water use efficiency master plan, which is a background program to help us achieve the water use efficiency targets. And we would continue to encourage and provide tools to our customers to improve their water use efficiency as we face the increasing risks of climate change. So it is my honor to read the longest recommendation I have ever seen in my time at the Water District, let alone had to read. By recommendation, to discuss and consider a motion to adopt an ordinance rescinding ordinance number 2021-01, an ordinance of Alameda County Water District declaring a water shortage emergency and adopting water use regulations, restrictions, and guidelines for the water shortage emergency, which will become effective immediately upon the expiration or termination of the portion of the State Water Resource Control Board emergency regulation that requires the district to implement all demand reduction actions identified in the district's water shortage contingency plan for a shortage level of 10 to 20%, better known as level 2. And with that, we'll open it up for discussion.
So we'll take public comments first. And I don't see any audience members. Is there anybody online?
Mr. Nishimura is online, and we also have a member of staff.
I don't see it. There goes
There it
the
is.
hand up. Okay. Let's, we welcome your comments here. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Sethy. I too am very glad to see that the precipitation window or the atmospheric rivers have come through for California and that we can bring the drought emergency to an end. I do support the district's efforts in continuing to inform the public and to treat water as a precious resource. Just because we had prolific precipitation this year does not mean that we'll have it next year, right? So I wholly support the district's efforts to continue to encourage conservation and the responsible use of water. However, given the fact that we do have plenty of precipitation this year. It is important, I think, for public confidence and also just the messaging that for this year, since we do have all this water, that we do rescind the drought emergency, so that if we enter another drought, it won't be a continuous drought, but the public will get to see the difference. And I think it will help the district long term to use the term drought and the drought emergency in a judicious way. So I 100% support the proposed recommendation of staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? I'm not seeing any, so we'll turn it over to the board. Director Weed, you want to kick us off?
Sure. First of all, I think it's notable that this is the second drought we've had and the second experience of having zero enforcement actions on the part of the district, the public, in order to achieve our drought objectives and requirements. So that is a universal support of the public in meeting the request for conservation. That's it's becoming almost predictable when you're doing your revenue planning. Next, I remain concerned that we have not tied our revenue issues to, because when we do get that, we're realizing that we need to do drought surcharges because of the imbalance. We limited the drought surcharge some months ago, and that's somewhat independent. However, when you see the continuing impact of conservation in our maps we just saw, with record low water sales, that has a financial impact. And our system is out of sync, doesn't match variable cost with variable income and fixed cost with fixed income. So we're on a tail. Next is the somewhat incongruity of claiming that we have a water drought problem as a municipal water agency. Municipal industrial is less than 9% of the state's water consumption. Half of it goes to the environment, 41+% goes to ag, and we're about 9%, and we'll pay up to 100 times more than the ag users for the water. We have the ability to convey water to the Bay Area from distant parts of the state. So we live in a somewhat of an Alice in Wonderland world when we talk about drought and creating what is, I believe, is somewhat of an artificial crisis. Fortunately, we can work through it and continue. We will in the future, over time, develop a more rational approach to water supply and water billing. Thank you.
So I'll just start by saying that I agree with Director Wee that we have wonderful, responsive, and responsible customers. Thank you for all your efforts. I do have a question for staff. This has to do with that bullet item about update language in notification materials. Are we planning to come up with a fact sheet or update the FAQ to let our customer know what specific actions that they are allowed or not allowed to do? I would say even myself is confused. Can I water my lawn? That would be the first question. So, you know, I do know my neighbors, some of them like to wash their sidewalk and all that. So it would really be helpful if we could have just something that's in plain language that just say, these are the actions that you are allowed to do, and these are what you cannot do. And I would ask for a bit more a proactive outreach instead of being passive, having our customer comes to us. If there are efforts we could make, such as through our social media or email distribution list, just push out that idea saying, hey, the board took this action and these are the modifications, what you can do now and what you can't do now. So that effort would really be appreciated if staff could think about that.
Certainly. We will share that we do have a draft. It's not ready for public distribution yet. I'm holding a hot copy in my hand. But what the real point of this is that really all the restrictions are still in place. It's just, it's a state ordinance still with a transition sort of period. So in that sense, nothing's really changed. The main thing about messaging that's changed is we're not really in a local drought emergency. So some of the language, we're certainly not in the driest 3-year period on record or any of the other sort of extreme language, which has surrounded a lot of the messaging. But really, until the state board takes action, nothing's really changing. We're just setting ourselves up to rescind as soon as that board takes its action. It may take till June 10th, but they may act sooner. So the language is truthfully, nothing has changed in that regard. It's a question of how actively do we want to be pursuing. As Director Weed said, we actually have never had, I would like to temper a little bit. Staff has worked very hard with many complaints that have gone to progressive stages of enforcement. We've just never had to go to the extreme of turning somebody's water off. So I don't want to lose sight of how much hard work staff has done. Has been very busy, and we've had to up staff even over the past drought as well as the previous one to respond to violations. It's a question of, as with the wet conditions out there, and as was commented by the member of public, it is very difficult for the public to understand that we're in a drought emergency and that these strict enforcements are in place. So it's an interesting little walk we have to do for a little bit. And it's possible the state could act tomorrow. We don't know. It's possible the state board could just rescind ahead of time. But if we look around the Bay Area, the action that we're recommending tonight, we are recommending to discuss and consider tonight, has been taken at Contra Costa, East Bay Mud, Valley Water, and today is at PUC. You can see the direction of this.
Right. So definitely we have a messaging tight, very fine line to walk.
We do.
But we are also as an agency obligated to tell our customer, right, what potential changes that might be coming, right? We could always craft a message that said, until the state board take their action, these restrictions are still in place. So yeah, it's going to be a hard message to craft, but I have faith in staff. You guys come up with the right message.
I think you won't be surprised by what you see.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
So similarly, I'm going to be supportive of tonight's staff recommendation. I think over the last 17 months in particular, we've seen that our customers have been very responsive to our requests to conserve water, and that's a partnership that we have with our community. And so we're obviously very thankful that the community responded to that ordinance, but it's also a testament to the work that staff put in to get the community on board. So I am going to, definitely support tonight's staff recommendation. Similar to Director Huang's request, maybe if I can broaden that request, it'd be great to get some kind of a communications plan on how we plan to message this to the community, because it's a dramatic shift in messaging from what we've been communicating to the community to kind of the new reality that we're living in over the past 4 months in particular. Director Huang and I in particular sit on the LICA committee, so if possible to bring that to the LICA committee in the next month or so, I think that would be helpful for us to review that, and that kind of gives us a better sense of how we can temper those discussions with the community when we do actually rescind the ordinance.
Okay. To be clear, I think if depending on the board's action tonight, there would be a press release happening prior to LICA committee. So I think we'll have to communicate some action.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that understood? Okay.
Yeah. Not to say that nothing can happen before review, but it would just be great for us to understand what that communication plan
wanted
looks
that
like.
clarity. And the longer term communication plan to go along with this transition. And that's the term we've been trying to push out, is we're in a drought transition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The staff did prepare a press release for me to sign yesterday. And Paul Rogers, in his article in the Mercury News, noted the purpose of this meeting tonight.
Right.
I wasn't sure I was allowed to discuss that.
It's in the newspaper.
We're prepared for any decision the board makes. Let's leave it at that.
No, I just said the purpose of the meeting is what he described.
Well, wonderful. That was my main request out of this, but otherwise,
going to be supportive.
Thank you. And can I ask just one clarification? Are you thinking beyond just to sort of the few months as we go into summer, or is that request towards a longer term communication on the topic of drought and
That's a great question. I think my request was a little bit more short term,
Okay.
simply because it would be helpful for us to align how we're communicating with our customers, with how staff is communicating. Of course, kind of a broader communication plan is always appreciated, but I don't want to I don't want to burden staff too much here. So something a little bit more short term, I think, will suffice for now. Thank you.
I don't disagree with that strategy, Director Akbari, but I think it's in plain sight for the public to see what the record snowfall is and the reservoirs overflowing on the spillways.
No, I don't disagree with that. I think it's more just over the last few years, really, we've had a very hard line with our customers about the need for conservation, and now we're just kind of tempering that message a little bit. So I just want to make sure that I'm communicating.
I'm going to have some contrasting comments in a minute here.
I actually, if you don't mind, there's one thing that wasn't mentioned in tonight's presentation, but I'm sure this board has heard this speech that's out there, and we've seen what happens after the last drought. We're expecting some direction and regulations to come out of Sacramento after this drought. As happened in every last drought, that's how we got plumbing codes. There's something another shoe is yet to fall. And so communication and an ongoing adapting of that into the dialogue with our community is definitely going to be an important thing.
I certainly appreciate all the work the staff has done, and we've gotten this finally to here today. Disappointed with the State Water Resources Board. It's public trust. You know, we had a lot of comments in our last rate hearings about, you know, sometimes members of the public, you never rescind these things. Well, we already rescinded one. We're on two, I think. I don't think we've had three. I think this is our second one.
Right.
This is why we have those things in our packet. It's a tool. And we're showing the public that, look, we don't need that tool now. My concern is the state is not taking action. The governor has, which is interesting. I appreciate what the governor did, but it's really hard message to sell to the public, particularly those we're living in Tulare Lake now. You know, I mean, we're not in a drought, or we're still in a drought. Excuse me. You know, I'm not allowed to water my lawn. Excuse me. I don't have a lawn. You know, I have a swimming pool. That's how you lose the public trust. They stop thinking that you know what you're talking about. Quite honestly, I think I'm stopping to think they don't know what they're talking about either. I understand long term that this will happen again. Hopefully not as bad as it was, but it will probably. It'll come back, which is why we have our state rate. We need it. And this is our message to the public telling, look, we don't need it now. We're getting rid of it. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done. And yes, it's still below. I could believe it. I mean, it's been raining pretty much straight. Dry Creek continues to run like Alameda Creek was running the last couple of years. I'm going to miss it when it's not. Keep looking for something, fish going up there. I haven't seen anything yet. Hope they don't, because it dries up. Anyway, probably said enough. Fully supportive of it. I hope the state takes action rather than just let it die. I think it'll be a good message from the state to thank the public. I mean, if we need it in certain areas still, then we deal with those areas directly. The state of California is a big state, a really big state. And they need to start treating it like a big state and not one size fits all. So with that, I say thank you, supportive of the staff, I'm very supportive of this item. I understand exactly what we're doing. I think everybody else is doing it, and I think it's a smart move on our part. We can't say we're going to get rid of it because the state hasn't. I just wish they would. Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to be tarred and feathered out in the community, so I will vote yes on this. And I really want to thank our everyone in our communities, the 3 cities, for stepping up and saving water as they have during this 3-year prolonged drought. I think one of the most important lessons for me, and it's really a pat on the back for staff, is how accurately we forecasted with our water resources folks and with the finance staff precisely what it was that we needed to make up in terms of lost revenue. And we came within a fraction of 1% of making our targets with the reduced demand on water consumption. And that tells me that we were really doing a good job in terms of trying to predict the future on water demand, and then, what additional finances were necessary to meet demand, the new demand. So one thing that does cause me concern, and I say this with my lifelong product manager's hat on, is the slide that you showed about water consumption earlier in the presentation. We are actually at the lowest of demand that I ever can remember to start off a year, which means that without the drought surcharge, we are going to see our revenues fall. We need to be prepared for that. We need to tighten our belts on expenses as best we can, even though our water purchase costs are going up. So that flat line there at the beginning of the chart is, and I already told this to Mr. Wunderlich some time back, that's what's causing me the greatest unease right now. We're trying to finish up this fiscal year, going into the next. On a side topic, I'm saying this in jest with some humor here. I think that we should make a video clip of last September's board meeting and extrapolate my weather forecast for the year. I think I'm in for a nomination on Weather Forecaster of the Year based on my comments in that meeting about the likelihood of a mega flood coming up, and that there was a 2 in 3 chance of this happening. And the precedent was the 1868 mega flood that was preceded by 3 severe years of drought, or 82-83 year, which we went through a dry spell from 75 through, roughly 81. And now we went through a prolonged drought. And there's this repetitive pattern in our California history going back 2,000 years from recorded geology, as I noted at that September board meeting. I should have been at the roulette table up in Tahoe or something, because even I can't believe that what I was talking about actually came true in this weather year.
I pointed that out to Director Sethy in the last committee meeting. I wanted to congratulate him on his forecasting abilities.
Well, we say every great drought ends with a very wet year. That's kind of an
Right,
expression
right.
in California water.
Yeah, maybe we can make a little video clip and send it to all the weather forecasters around the Bay Area.
Before you do that, I'd caution you, let you know, we didn't even reach half of a mega flood arc storm type event.
Well,
The record events that we had were still a fraction of what they could have been under the arc storm event. So just gives you a sense
we had
of the
30
magnitude of what we may be in
we
store.
had
for
31 river storms, and the snowpack has yet to melt. And like Director Gunther was noting, Tulare Lake is about 30 square miles right now. And it's forecasted to go to 200 to 300 square miles with the snow melt that's going to happen. This is going to be devastating in the multi-billions of dollars of economic impact to the central part of the state. And I have walked the fields of the old Tulare Lake. We're about 100 square miles in the Tri-City area. Can you imagine 300 square miles? That's what they're predicting right now.
It's going to be something.
We're only now going into the more favorable weather conditions where we will start seeing that snowpack melting from north of the state all the way down to Mammoth Lakes. It's not going to be easy for the water managers out there.
They have some interesting times ahead of them.
Okay, that concludes my comments here. So is there a motion from a board member? Oh, let's go back to the public. Any last minute public comments?
Maybe we should come back to the
See
recommendation
any?
slide.
So I invite a motion from a member of the board here.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
We're going to be clear, staff didn't make a recommendation.
Right. The recommendation is before us this evening.
Right. We won't make you read the whole thing.
Discuss and consider the motion.
Directors Gunther,
Second.
I second.
Okay. Aye.
Director Akbari.
Aye.
Huang. Aye. Weed
Aye.
and Sethy.
Aye. So we have rescinded ordinance number 2021-01. Board
With
committee
a set effective date that is not today. So
effective when the state acts, just
Right.
like San Francisco did. Okay. So we go on to board committee reports. Are there any comments from members of the public? Any board comments on a matter?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the report, which pictures of the storm damage that took place, and which committee was that?
I think that was Water Resources Committee.
Don't recall. It surprised me because I don't recall seeing those photos in the committee meeting. But in any case, there was a note in there. There was a note in there that we were going to request FEMA funding. Have we initiated the process where we create separate accounts so that when we apply to FEMA, we can identify what expenses were expended or made in response to the emergency?
We are tracking costs separately for storm-related damage for the purpose of seeking reimbursement. Mr. Wonderlook, do you have anything else to add to that?
Our standard practice whenever there's an emergency or other type of extraordinary event is to create what we internally refer to as a job number, and then engage staff or instructed to charge any time as well as any kind of contractor external cost to that job number. So it's all separately accounted for. And that's that process has been followed also with these recent storm emergency events.
Great, thank you. As it's been a problem for other districts in the past. San Francisco took 25 years to resolve their Loma Prieta issues with FEMA. Next, I would note that the pictures bring to mind my proposal that we try to avoid open channels for water conveyance. I would encourage us as we go into the 2050 study to leave that as one of our goals. And that we consider coordinating with San Francisco, which is involved in the Los Vaqueros project at 40%. And they are somehow, I would think, will want to try to intertie and be able to take water from Los Vaqueros through the South Bay Aqueduct into their system, if they have that much. those same connections would be potentially mutually beneficial to ACWD for being able to divert water. And I doubt that San Francisco wants to use an open channel for conveyance if they can avoid it. So working with San Francisco to achieve that goal would hopefully get us the hell out of Alameda Creek and out of Alcides Channel. So, thank you.
And Director Weed, just to correct my assertion that it was the Water Resources Committee, it was actually the Engineering and Information Technology Committee on March 1st. They staff talked about an engineering assessment of some of the damages associated with the storm events.
Great, thank you.
Any other director comments here on committee meetings? Okay, I have one on the what in regards to the water resources meeting on March 22nd. This was the first time I got a full or the fullest explanation as to what is occurring at Semi-Tropic. And I just want to express I'm very concerned about our ability to retrieve water or make water transfers when necessary. This is one of 6 Sigma plans that was not accepted by the state, even on the revised plan. And you have, which I didn't know about, you know, we've got over 100,000 acres of water storage there, maybe even up to 3 years of water storage there. But I didn't realize how overdrafted that aquifer was. And I'm a little worried that there could be some lawsuits filed by other nearby aquifers where, you know, their water could actually end up in the semi-tropic aquifer. And I think there needs to be some coordination among the agencies, particularly Santa Clara, ourselves, Zone 7, that are reliant on that semi-tropic resource. So I would like to have a kind of a periodic update or a comprehensive update from the staff. It may be necessary to do it under confidential attorney-client privileged communication, but nevertheless, at least provide the information to the board as to whether we can reliably depend upon that water storage resource or water banking. Anyone want to build on my comments here?
Oh, I brought to the attention of the board that the Santa Clara staff to their water supply exploratory committee had expressed concerns about Semi-Tropic and brought you one of the charts that showed Semi-Tropic had proposed their initial and their Sigma submittal even then to continue overdrafting to 2039. Now that was allowed under the Sigma law. But what was interesting in the rejection of the Kern County proposal for Sigma, of which Semi-Tropic is about 50%. 160,000 acre feet a year is pumped by Semi-Tropic of the 320,000 acre feet for Kern County as a whole. That Semi-Tropic was proposing to, the state noted that Semi-Tropic was proposing a water table 200 feet below that of the neighboring water districts, and noted extraordinary drawdowns on specific wells. The other aspect of Semi-Tropic's concerns relate to the soil team, and that Metropolitan had, to my understanding, has stopped banking water in Semi-Tropic, and therefore, and have raising concerns over the 123 TCP. What that does to the overall agreement, particularly if the Met chooses not to accept water from Semi-Tropic, because we were in an exchange program, does that what type of jeopardy does that potentially put us in? At the last WSC meeting this last month at Santa Clara, they did not mention Semi-Tropic, but did note that they were investigating other groundwater banking opportunities, the San Joaquin Valley. My prediction overall is that while the San Joaquin, stepping back, looking at the big picture, the San Joaquin Valley at one time was primarily owned by oil companies. They bailed, and some nut growers, Resnick and others, bought much of that land and had the ability to, with irrigation, plant a lot of trees. Westlands purchased over 100,000 acres in Mendota area so that and let it go fallow so the water could be put to some fairly wealthy tree growers. Los Angeles purchased 300,000 acres of land in the Owens Valley in order to secure those water rights and take that land out of agriculture when needed. Irvine Ranch had once been involved with semi-tropic, made a major purchase to expand the semi-tropic area. Then when they took a look at the overdrafting mindset of semi-tropic, asked to be bailed out, and semi-tropic reimbursed Irvine Ranch, which then went and purchased several thousand acres of land, or 2,000 at least, in two different parcels, and working with Rio Bravo. But my prediction is that in the future, you'll see, rather than oil companies owning much of the land in the San Joaquin Valley, it will be urban water districts. And we may well be one of those urban water districts. Thank you.
Just to build on your comments, I think the alarm bell went off when I read the committee report that we are now in a transition where DWR was overseeing the Sigma plan approvals. And now we're moving to an enforcement level with under the State Water Board, where it was alluded to in the report that we may, semi-tropic may end up on a probationary status. That puts our water banking supplies into great jeopardy. And so that's what I'm really concerned about. And those topics were not brought up in the committee. So that's why I'm raising them here.
Well, unless staff has anything else to add, I'll just indicate that I think what we told the committee is certainly staff is following semi-tropic developments really closely. We will continue to be updating the committee, and if there are issues to bring to the board, we can certainly do that. We don't necessarily at this point have the same sort of dire outlook at semi-tropic as what it sounds like some of our neighboring agencies have at this point. I think the water board, considering putting the basin in probationary status and things like that, I think it's unprecedented so far. And so there's a lot that needs to be figured out going forward. So what it really means to us is not perfectly clear yet. It's going to be a process. We know that. So we are certainly following semi-tropic developments.
Well, can we even make water transfers right now? That wasn't made clear in the committee report either.
I think we're actively putting water into semi-tropic right now where we can. And certainly we've had no problem getting water out of semi-tropic throughout the drought. Again, the status change is happening right now. So the details of what that looks like going forward aren't entirely clear yet. Again, it's unprecedented. We do know that groundwater banking is one of the main pillars of the state's strategy for water supply in the state going forward. So, significant groundwater banking programs like semi-tropic are going to be really important for the state to meet their objectives. So there's a lot to come.
I've walked through the semi-tropic percolation ponds that are down there. And it's very extensive. It's much larger than our Quarry Lakes operation. Huge. You can drive for miles around there. If Tulare Lake gets large enough, it might provide some groundwater recharge.
Snow melts.
It's close by, and you got three major rivers there, the Kern and the King especially, that can help out. All right, so if there are no more comments on committee reports, let's go to operational reports.
Let me use this briefly. The primary bankers in semi-tropic are the South Bay Aqueduct contractors, Zone 7, ACWD, and Santa Clara. I think we're the bulk of it. The Met has some others. So as a group, we should be talking to among ourselves as to how that is, because we have the same piping systems and the same basic issues.
Okay, we move on to operational reports. Any comments from directors? No public comments. Oh, there is one from Mr. Nishimura.
Thank you, President Sethy. Yeah, thank you, President Sethy. I'm just go through the 6 different reports. Rainfall report, I think we've beaten that one to death. It's been very wet this year. The groundwater recharge report, I think I've already made a comment about a data request. Water production, I do share the concern brought up by Director Weed, but I do believe that now that the major rains have stopped, we should see a substantial uptick as people start turning their sprinklers on and outdoor water use increases. Director's expense, I share your, I do support your comment, Director Sethy, about being careful with spending. Investment report, having looked at the difference between the par value and market value, as we all witnessed with the Silicon Valley Bank debacle, investments in treasuries typically have lost value as the Fed has cranked up the short-term interest rates. However, given the fact that the district's average duration is only 2.71 years, I'm not worried at all that the district will actually realize those losses. And finally, on the distribution hardness map, I do again note that we do have fairly hard water in the eastern service area of the district. Again, because SFPUC has switched to local supplies, so the blend water that we are getting, or the water that we're blending from SFPUC is harder than normal. So the resultant blended water is actually harder at the upper end of what I would consider to be a tolerable hardness range. I do note that the western side of the district is receiving quite soft water due to the output of the desal plant, and I did read through the reports, the efforts made by staff to look at bringing additional source raw water supplies to the desal so that we could operate that at full rated capacity. So I again appreciate staff's efforts in tracking down the manganese oxidation problem, so that in the near future we could probably operate that desal plant at full capacity, and therefore have a larger fraction of the district receive the nice soft water that plant produces. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one comment on our investment returns. I was looking at the latest camp returns, Mr. Wunderlich, this last week, and on the shortest term maturities, we're getting close to 5% yield. That's quite extraordinary when we were close to 0% at the bottom of our economic cycle. So on our short-term returns look very healthy right now.
However, I recall on our last financial committee meeting, we had our financial monthly report, we took a $10 million hit in our investments at the time of the Silicon Valley crisis. So it works its out way over time. One month to month, it can be brutal.
Yeah. Stock market actually has not been as disappointing as a lot of people were anticipating this year. You have Meta, which is up about 85% year to date. NVIDIA is up around 80% year to date. Start taking a look around the Silicon Valley, and despite the layoffs, they say that the average IT person is getting a new job within 75 days. And it was reported this morning that the unemployment rate for Silicon Valley, the Bay Area tech community, is 3.5%, the lowest since the Vietnam War. So there's different dynamics going on in technology right now, but the layoffs haven't impacted the economy so far because there's been a rapid uptake in new hiring. And it's so quick. They said the average is 75 days from layoff to getting a new job.
But those workers are not located in the urban centers.
The Bay Area right here.
Well, San Francisco is in a doom loop. As in the description.
Anyway, okay.
Thank you.
So we don't have any staff presentations today?
Correct.
So we'll go to the general manager's report.
President Sethy, can I?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Can I request a 5 to 10 minute break?
Oh, could we do that right after the general manager's report?
I actually have, I think, 4 brief reports.
Should we take a break?
I think
then?
it might be good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. So we'll move on to general manager's reports.
Okay, thank you, President Sethy. And we do have a few items to go through quickly. Number 1 on the agenda is drought update. And staff's not planning to provide our sort of typical drought update. We've already covered that as part of item 512. So this is more of an update on the drought update. And that is that staff, given where we are now and the action that the board took this evening, staff is not planning on providing a regular update on the drought in each regular board meeting as we have been for quite some time, but rather provide updates related to any significant changes that occur, right? Changes to executive orders that the governor issues or changes by the state water board that may impact, regulations and requirements. So that's what staff's planning on doing. And unless I hear any great objection, that's what we'll do. Item number 2 is some good news. Actually, the rest of the items are good news. So this is a good news board meeting, really. The item number 2 is CAPIO Awards. This is the California Association of Public Information Officials. They have an awards program they call the EPIC Awards. They recently announced the winners of their 2023 EPIC Awards, and ACWD made an entry into this award program titled Pushing Past Crisis Fatigue to Save Water, a water agency's call to action using reverse 911. And we've shared with the board some of the strategies we've used during the drought to try and really help encourage our customers to save water. And using that reverse 911 system was one of those. And it's really caught a lot of attention by many throughout the state. It was something that I talked about with the governor and the administration in some of our meetings during the drought. And so I'm really thrilled that we didn't win only one award based upon our entry. We won 2 awards, both in 2 categories, most innovative communications and crisis communication response. So ACWD has been really successful with that program. I think the board's familiar with how it went, but this reverse 911 system and our messaging by using that system really helped our customers get past the 15% reduction goal that we were really struggling to achieve for a long time. It was within a few days of issuing that reverse 911 message that we saw real meaningful results that were attributed directly to that messaging. So that's great. I really congratulate our whole team across many divisions and departments who organized that use of that tool, and then our public affairs staff for submitting that.
Are we going to do any PR on this?
Well, PR about PR, I suppose we can do some level of.
No, PR to thank our customers that this was an effective
for sure
response. I remember when I got the call at home, I was surprised it was this recorded message.
Right.
I thought it was from somebody here at the district.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was indirectly, but yeah. Yeah, so we'll add that to our list of things to talk about with our customers. Also another award and some good news. And for this one, I'll ask Mr. Wunderlich to share.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. So the district was recently selected as a digital AI energy water leader for 2023. And this award will be presented at an industry customer service conference next month and is sponsored by our AMI portal provider, SEW. And so this digital AI energy water leader award is a recognition for utilities that demonstrate a strong commitment to innovation and digital transformation. Through a rigorous selection process led by industry experts, these exceptional utilities, which includes us, so we're not the lone recipient, are celebrated for their outstanding projects and impressive impact. ACWD is a prime example of a digital leader in the water sector, leveraging intelligent analytics, customer experience transformation, and cutting-edge technologies to provide customers with a seamless digital self-service platform. This innovative approach to customer service showcases the impact of modern communication tools in connecting and empowering customers. Through My Smart Water Connect, our new customer portal, customers can easily manage their water services, view their AMI consumption data, explore our other programs and rebates, stay informed about the installation schedule for the AMI project, and much more. And so with these functionalities and features such as water use efficiency education, leak alerts, detailed billing notifications, and multiple account management, we're utilizing these modern and intelligent technologies to deliver convenient and personalized customer experiences. And I know that's been our goal with all of the technological advancements we've made in customer service, is to really allow the customer to dictate and receive the experience they're looking to have with the district. And so I would like to recognize our core project team for their excellent work. Again, key contributors include Ben Ager, Katrina Bates, Michelle Strickland, Manveen Brarge, and Jacqueline Simon from our customer service group, as well as Stephanie Nevins and Megan Marino from the water efficiency group. So really a great effort by the whole team. And it's great to see that effort recognized here. And I know some of them will actually be at this conference next month, so it'll be great for them.
Where is the conference?
It is in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's a kind of a customer service industry conference that's really heavily focused on the use of technology and systems within customer service. And so Manveen, who's our business analyst within the customer service group, and Jacqueline, our supervisor, will be there, and they tend to find a lot of value in these conferences.
Next.
Okay, lastly, more good news and more awards. This one's on the financial side, though. And so for this, I'll turn it over to Ms. Walden once again.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. So on March 6, 2023, the district received notification that it had been awarded a Proposition 1 groundwater grant program funding of $2,205,094 for the district's brackish groundwater reclamation project, which is 50% of the estimated project cost. The project will remove trapped brackish groundwater from the Niles Cone subbasin caused by legacy saltwater intrusion from the San Francisco Bay, and prevent brackish water from migrating to the district's Maury well field, a drinking water source for the district's customers. The project is contingent on property acquisition and consists of installation of an extraction well, pumping equipment, electrical, and subsurface transport piping. The brackish groundwater reclamation project resulted from the data collected from the Niles Cone groundwater basin extraction well site evaluation project, which was completed in 2022, which was also partially grant funded. This item was recently featured in the April 6 San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board's Executive Officers Report. Being featured in the Executive Officers Report is very satisfying and is a result of the hard work of everyone in the Groundwater Resources team. There isn't one staff member in the group that hadn't been involved in these projects. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge the support from water production, facilities maintenance, laboratory staff, and project engineering, and we look forward to coming back to the board with items as the project develops.
Good work.
Okay, and that completes our general manager's report.
And is the site acquisition still The one that we're pursuing somewhere around Farwell Drive, Fremont.
Yes.
Is that the right one I'm thinking
Yeah,
about?
I think it is.
More off of Blake Gal.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, in that general area. And so we've got quite a bit of work to do yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we'll go to director's comments. We've got a number of things here, so I guess I'll kick it off here. So the Los Vaqueros Reservoir JPA, our executive director, officers on the board, and our government consultant to that JPA plus our government consultants here at ACWD, we all teamed up to go to Sacramento for one day, and we split into groups of like 3 or 4 so that we could make the rounds in the Capitol building. It was my first time in the new Capitol, or the temporary space, but it is absolutely wonderful. It's new, up to date. It's like being in a modern high-tech building here in Silicon Valley. And the feeling I got from people under 40 is they absolutely love it. And the people over 40 miss the old Capitol building where I used to get lost a lot. So anyway, you're able to work very efficiently in that building. So we were timing meetings from 9 o'clock in the morning, every half an hour, to meet with a legislator for 20, 25 minutes, turn around and then run to the next meeting on a different floor. And this went on, except for a half-hour break at lunch. Each one of our teams hit legislators all day long. And our last meeting was with the governor's office, where they're building the new state resources building, that natural resources, state resources building, tearing down the old one. The meetings were all effective. We got positive responses from all the Democrats, from all the Republicans. And at one of our meetings with Assembly Member Juan Alanis from the Central Valley, he's a pretty hardcore cowboy Republican. And he told us, this is the greatest Christmas present I could ever imagine if this gets done. And so he invited us to come back and present to the entire Republican caucus. So we're going to do that. After our meeting with Assembly Member Ash Cholera, who I've known for about 20 years, I had a side conversation with him on a subject that I think is near and dear to all of us here on the board, and that is to have the date for our Replenishment Act moved to a standard Thursday for a regular monthly board meeting from Tuesday. And the reason I approached Mr. Cholera about this is that he is one of the commissioners on the California Law Revision Commission, which is headquartered at UC Davis. Since they were founded, they have made about 20,000 recommendations on fine tuning of laws that don't require, all kinds of legislative hearings. They have a 90% plus success rate. I know Mr. Miyake looked into how they operate and function. And Assemblymember Cholera said that he would be more than willing to work with us on supporting a change in the law for when we have to approve the Replenishment Act, which was an earlier agenda item. So he said follow up with him with a proposal, Mr. Miyake, that may require some attention on your part for precisely what area of law and the code that we need changed. Then we can send in a proposal for him, and he said he would be happy to meet with us here at his local office.
So happy to work with the board on that. This is something that probably should come back to the board at some point as to what the board would like to see changed in the Replenishment Assessment Act. You mentioned the public hearing date, which is an easy one. But I do recommend that we have some sort of discussion with the full board as we figure out what to proceed with it, how to proceed with potential changes to the Replenishment Assessment Act.
That's good news. But anyway, Assemblymember Cholera was so receptive. He said, "I'd be more than happy to help you out on this, and I'll work with you and your district." Assemblymember Lee chimed in the same way, but he said it's better if Assemblymember Cholera takes the lead on it, although he will support whatever we're wishing to do, because Cholera is one of the commissioners. Okay, the next day I was at the Aqua Legislative Symposium, and it really was divided into three parts. Legislation that Aqua is supporting or very much against, a thorough discussion about reforming the water rights in California and senior rights, and Aqua is really digging in its heels here, and they do not want to see any changes to water rights law in California. I didn't speak up at the conference. I was trying more to listen, but you know, I've done a lot of reading on this subject, and I don't know how other board members feel, but I personally believe a reform in the water rights laws is long overdue. There's no other state in the country that operates like we do. And I think that a lot of the pre-1914 rights are being abused. Today, the federal government came out on some recommendations on the Colorado River, which are unprecedented proposals in terms of stamping or stomping on California's water rights to better allocate water on the Colorado River. But that was the second part of our discussion. And the third part was on the on proposals for putting new bonds on the 2024 ballot. And what does the water industry want to achieve? They're talking about $15 to $18 billion in new water bonds. And part of the discussion where there was a lot of common thinking is Californians haven't seen any results from Prop 1 yet. And here we are going for another huge funding round when the state might be in the midst of a deficit and a little bit of a recession. And we actually need, as an industry, to demonstrate we can get things done before we start asking for more money. So a lot of the discussion was around our public relations effort, and we're going to hear about this, a lot more about this at the Spring Aqua. So next, item 7.3. Because I was at that Aqua meeting, I was not present here for our workshop, but I did read through all the materials, and then I sent a proposal into Mr. Stevenson that I would like to share with the rest of the board. First of all, the governor, in his California's water supply strategy, adapting to a hotter, drier future, this got a lot of press last fall. Everybody was reading this at the Aqua, Winter Aqua. And what caught my eye when this came out, and I'm asking in my proposal to Mr. Stevenson, I hopefully have the approval of the board here too, to add into our IRP opportunities to study new brackish water desalination opportunities within our geographic area of jurisprudence in our district. And although we serve the Tri-City area and a tiny portion of Hayward, our jurisdiction goes all the way past the San Mateo Bridge on the west side of 880. So, and that's not commonly known, but my thought is that we should do or study a regional desal facility close to the power plant near the San Mateo Bridge. And the second site is in South Warm Springs, also west of 880, in the South Industrial Park down the road here. The governor says he wants to expand brackish groundwater desalination production by 28,000 acre feet per year by 2030 and 84,000 acre feet by 2040, which I think is perfectly in line with our IRP. By January 2024, that's coming up, the Department of Water Resources and the State Water Board, in coordination with local agencies, will identify the brackish desalination projects that have the potential to be operational by 2030 and by no later than 2040. The state will consider investing in grants to local agencies for planning and building these desalination projects. That was step one. And I think we need to listen to the governor's message, which is loud and clear. Let's explore. Then LAFCO put out a report on water and wastewater in November 2021 for the county. And you would be surprised to learn, and I know Ms. Walden already knows about this. The number one recommendation was that Alameda LAFCO should create a county-wide regional water and wastewater committee, which is underway. LAFCO is hiring a consultant. They're going to have a May hearing on this. I believe you're attending, Walton?
Correct.
And Ms. Heides too. That includes all affected agencies in the county. The committee should also explore the cost and effectiveness of a regional desalination plant. And the executive director said that this is for Alameda County only. Our friend at Dublin San Ramon Services District, Georgine, is a board member there, but she's also one of our two special district representatives on LAFCO. So I told the executive director, Rachel Jones, that this is kind of right in line with the governor's message, and that if we want a grant opportunity, we need to file something before the end of the year and have LAFCO put their an endorsement on what we're doing. But we got to go grab some money right now. And I think these are two important things that we could put into the IRP. The third thing, which I forgot to put in my memo, is I would like us to take a look at an intertie between our desal plant and the Hetch-Hetchy pipeline, the large diameter pipeline over in Newark. I would like the staff to explore what the values propositions would be and the feasibility of putting in an intertie, because we're so close in proximity there. So those were three ideas. Even though I wasn't here for the meeting at the workshop, I would like to have us entertain. And the window is short right now. We need to work as a team to get something in the hopper here. You really do.
Yeah, just maybe a real quick update for the board. The IRP, or whatever it is that we'll ultimately call it, will include evaluation of multiple alternatives, just like we've done in the past. And desal, brackish water, and bay desal will be in there in the mix. With regard to, in terms of timeline and so forth, it's not likely that ACWD would go directly for something like that at our expense in the near term, like in the 2023-24 timeline, right? However, we might be a little ahead of LAFCO on this because we are reaching out to the state to invite the state to evaluate this area in particular. Obviously, we have a little bit of understanding about groundwater conditions here and brackish water conditions. And so we can really feel like we can work hand in hand with the state. So we're inviting the state to include this area in their assessment of options. There's no grant funding available from that particular program yet. So there's nothing to go after yet. But I think what the state is doing is trying to understand what opportunities are there, and they really want to move on what they can find, including planning and studying. So that I think is helpful for us. So we're a ways away from that right now, but we are reaching out directly to the state. In terms of coordination with LAFCO, yeah, there may be some synergy there where if LAFCO, I understand that the focus of this sort of subcommittee that they're establishing is really more on water or wastewater and recycling. However, there's this possibility that desal would be discussed. So if there's an advantage,
possibility, that's their number one recommendation.
I thought it was
The committee should also explore the cost and effectiveness of a regional desal
okay.
plant.
Yeah. So how they prioritize those two, I don't know. I think it originally came up in terms of wastewater recycling.
Well,
but
wouldn't it be reasonable to try and at least put forward a very simple proposal to the state so that we can try to get some grant money for this to conduct the studies? The north portion of our Niles Cone aquifer is not something that we really have studied in depth in the last few decades. Our original general manager, who was here for 20 years, he did a lot of detailed studies of that portion of the Niles Cone, and we have his records too. But we need to study what is the quality of the water up there, what is the geology, subsurface. There's all kinds of things that we have to take a look at. And I would highly encourage us to get in to this deadline, that is January 1, 2024, even if it's something very simple. Hire an intern to come in and write it up for us. Be creative.
we are opening that channel with the state. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's my report on that. Any feedback from the board on those ideas?
No, always.
It's always worth looking. Just remember that Niles Cone doesn't actually go that far. We'll run into the Southeast Bay Plain groundwater basin, which belongs to East Bay mud. And there's actually interconnection, if memory serves me right. So that is definitely worth looking into.
That's why I say we should look at it as a regional effort.
Quick comments on the we've looked at interties with we've proposed interties with the Newark desalination facility and Hetch Hetchy, and that portion of that proposal should be brought up. Fortunately, it was linked to indirect potable reeves that we would be providing treated sewage into the groundwater basin and then transferred over. If you drop the outrageously expensive recycled water portion of it, it may make a lot of sense. I encourage us to consider that. Much like Los Vaqueros, I strongly support the Bethany transfer pipeline, and hopefully that will be enlarged to be able to provide water, although it runs into problems with Contra Costa's moral objection to sending water to Southern California, because they're worried about where that extra water would go. Even if someone's going to pick up the majority of the cost of the pipeline, would be violate their principles. The ability to build a desal facility in the Hayward area runs into the remarkable contract that Hayward has with San Francisco, where they have an unlimited water supply and priority to getting water from the San Francisco PUC. At the time, East Bay Mud and San Francisco were competing to provide Hayward with water. They played the two against each other and got the unrestricted water supply into Hayward from San Francisco. With that pure water, not having to worry about the quantity amounts, regardless of what you do, it's going to be very difficult. East-South still becomes a cost competitive challenge to San Francisco. Let's see the advantage. East Bay Mud, ironically, may see the advantage, even though they do have their own Delta bypass with the colony. There's another issue that has come up on regional plans. Let me jump into another topic. And that is at Bosca, where I was the sole no vote. Bosca has voted to participate in a recycled water project in San Mateo. None of that water will benefit many of the members. It will benefit a small group of members in San Mateo. So the concept of beneficiary pays being ignored. And I would encourage us as a district to look into that, and being a sole no vote at a large Bosca meeting doesn't have the same impact as having our staff raise the issue of beneficiary pays and the ability to try and not get involved in paying up to 6% of the Bosca share in this project, which will be the majority share of the project. San Francisco is also participating in Las Vaqueras up to 40%. The Bosca is 2/3 of that, and we will be 4% of San Francisco's share of that cost. Will eventually come back to ACWD. Something to keep in mind. Not only do we have our own investment, we'll be also in the San Francisco portfolio.
Director Weed, would you like to lead us into the item 7.4 on the well conference?
Yes, the well conference, water education for Latino leaders. Van Nuys, an interesting airfield that does not have commercial air traffic, but at 7 a.m. aircraft are certainly taking off. At one, but not before. An interesting hotel that had been out of business for several years and just were bringing it back. So it was a relatively low cost accommodations. The conference itself, I thought, was worthwhile in the sense that it had growing participation from various members of the community. Betty Yee was present there, as was the head of the executive director of the California Water Commission. So we were able to have some conversations in more less pressured environment, talk about issues. Miguel Luna was representative for the Met, and he is also on the Delta Conveyance Authority. So Tracy Quinn, who is on the Met board, but also Healed the Bay, Santa Monica, had some interesting observations, is concerned about the cost of Delta Conveyance. So those are, there appears to be some changing of center at the Met, some new leadership. We'll see where that merges when it comes to the Delta project. Thank you.
So to follow up, this was the 11th annual conference, and I believe that Director Weed and I have been to at least 8 of them, maybe 9. And we were at the inception on the ground floor of well getting off the ground. And this is mostly Latino people, elected leaders. We had about 200 people there, and over half were elected Latinos from around the state of California. When it first got off the ground, a dozen years ago, they had maybe 24 people at most. Now it's up to 200. And, you have some really very distinguished people coming in. Congresswoman Napolitano from Burbank was there, gave an excellent set of remarks. And we had a number of assembly people. I think where John and I got the most benefit is one, it was the first time I met my co-chair on the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority in person for the first time, Mr. Luna from the Met Board. And we could hear from him directly about Met's interest in the Delta Conveyance. Hearing the comments from Tracy Quinn on the opposing side on the board was also interesting. Joe Yun, who's the executive director for the California Water Commission, really works for DWR. He purposefully cited John and I and sat down so he could talk with us about various issues, including the projects in the Delta and Los Vaqueros and Transfer Bethany Pipeline, things like that, and repairs to the South Bay Aqueduct. So that was a surprise because, well, he was one of the guest speakers on the agenda, but it was a surprise he spent that amount of time with us. And then we had a nice dinner with Tony Estremera from the Santa Clara Valley Board, which was really enlightening. And I think there's a lot of harmony in our thinking when it comes to the various issues that all three agencies are dealing with. They had when we first got off with the meeting, they asked the non-Latino members of the group to stand up, and we only had about 8, including John and I. So we're part of a special club that they call the Honorary Latino Leaders. I told John, Director Weed, this on the drive back, I was so impressed with all the newly young elected Latinos in the state. So, and some of them that spoke just are remarkably mature. It's just, and you can actually have a policy discussion with them on issues, and they know things with some depth of knowledge. It's not shallow presentations. So I was impressed by that. The topics that were discussed were pretty good as well. So I think that wraps that up. And I have one final thing, which was our meeting with Assembly Member Alex Lee. Oh, by the way, that airport that we were right next to, the landing field was right behind us. That was the airfield used for a lot of Hollywood movies, including Casablanca, the final scene of Casablanca, and where Marilyn Monroe was discovered a couple blocks away. So they had a lot of history in the hotel, and someone like me, that was really interesting stuff to dive into. Anyway, Director Gunther, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Director Sethy and I had a meeting with Assembly Member Alex Lee, his field rep, Matthew Jorgens, city council member, actually in Newark, Don and Ed, Don Wonderlick and Ed. I think I got everybody was there. Treatment too.
Yeah, also Shireen Gonzalez and Mike
Shireen was
Wickham.
there, correct.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry I missed
No.
Shireen. I knew there was a third.
And Mike.
Yeah, Mike Wickham.
Mike. That's right, Mike was there too. So very, very productive meeting. It was a busy week for me that week. And we went over a lot of things. Our desires of Los Vaqueros, Delta ties, the Delta project. Director Sethy really did a great job presenting what we need to do for the state to bring Assembly Member Lee to understand the impact these projects have to us. The whole concept of the Delta conveyance doesn't mean anything to us. Los Vascaros to design, and then hit them with the fact that, we've been running a desal. We hear about it, and I'm not sure he even knew. Based, I don't know.
He didn't.
It's like he didn't know. We've been doing this. We could provide you info because he seems very interested in our desal plant. Water banking, not new. We've been doing that as well. And that we're a resource for him. And we're, open. I highly recommend that we do this with our other legislators. I think he'll be very receptive to us because of this. And I think he came away very receptive, and hopefully this will turn around and help ourselves and our district. I think it will.
I want to add one thing to our conversation. First of all, he is the chair of one committee where PFAS is.
That's right, PFAS.
Major. He's the most important person in the assembly overlooking those issues. And so he was very interested in our cleanup efforts, but he said that his primary job with his colleagues right now is to stop these chemicals from coming into the system in the first place, that they won't be providing funding for cleanup. I was trying to stress to him how expensive this is for our district, for the ratepayers, and that we need some relief from the state financially to help on these kind of projects. Number two, I made a proposal to him on submitting a bill to the legislature, and he gobbled it up. He really liked the idea, and he asked that we work with him on drafting up a bill. So my proposal, this is coming from the DWR turf replacement funding that came out last fall. And they awarded, we heard about this at Aqua, at the Winter Aqua, that a few communities, including Indian Wells, got grants from DWR for what they call direct installation of water efficient gardens. And I have had a major complaint ever since I've been on this board that it is so cumbersome for people to go through the entire rebate program process. And the only people who really take advantage of it are the wealthier people in our community. If you drive around and you see where these water efficient gardens are, you'll hardly find one in Newark or certain areas of older Fremont and Union City, but you find them predominantly in the wealthier areas of our community. And if you speak a foreign language or you're a different ethnic group, people just have a very difficult time getting through the process, and they can't afford to spend the money up front and then wait for months to get the rebate. That doesn't work for a lot of folks. And I've sat in this boardroom on Saturdays and evenings many times. Ms. Walden knows this because I always like to talk to the people that are here about the history of our district. And when I'm talking to them, the most frustrating thing is, how do I get started? Where do I get a landscape architect? Where do I buy the plants? What plants? There's no information really to help speed things up for people. So at the Well Conference, the Assistant General Manager for Los Angeles Water and Power was talking about their direct installation program that's been very successful on the power side of the utility, and that in the next 3 to 4 months, they're going to introduce it on the water side for direct installation of water efficient gardens. Long Beach is already doing this, and one of the other DWR awards from the money last fall went to San Diego Water Authority, where they're going to implement this program. But what I told Assemblyman Lee is that we need a statewide grant reimbursement program where districts can go out and have a list of contractors that can go in and in 1 or 2 days, they replace the entire yard. Customer doesn't have to worry about anything. It's first come, first serve. They get their yard done without any worries, and we file for a reimbursement. And he said he really likes that idea. So he asked that we work with him to draft something up. And I would really like to encourage our district to head in that direction. Any thoughts?
I was there. And no, it was a very good presentation. There are some problems that it would have to be worked out. Money, probably the biggest, but it's certainly, if you know, it's a well-raised point in that, you know, that if you go around, you look who's replaced their lawns. It's not the people without money. It's the people with the money. And so I think Assemblymember Lee was very receptive to if there's a way to, and this might be that way, to actually get that groundwork where we can get in there, make it easier, so that the people that don't have the ability to upfront the money do it, get it done. And the benefits, yeah, we'll see. I know some people may not agree with me there, but I do feel that the benefits will be there.
Well, you know, I've talked to other legislators over the years and presented different ideas, and the normal response is, oh, let me think about it. Let me chew on it for a while.
This
right?
response was different.
His response was different. He got it right away, and he said, I'm enthusiastic about this. Let's write a bill together. Let's get it into the hopper.
If I could jump
Yeah,
in, President Sethy, I'm not too sure if you're just getting input from the board on your conversation, your meeting with Assembly Lee, or if you're asking for the board to support writing legislation as a district with Assembly Member Lee. If it's the latter, we should probably put something on an agenda for a future meeting. If this is going to be an ACWD kind of sponsored bill, I'm just trying to understand what the ask is.
I was just asking for some informal feedback right now, but I think you offer the right suggestion. Let's put it on the agenda for some discussion. Maybe bring it to the Water Resources Committee first, or like a committee.
Sure,
And
if you
staff
go to a
was there
committee
with
first,
us.
that
We
would be
weren't
fine.
Yeah, and I just want to note that we do have a hand raised from Mr. Nishimura.
Please go ahead, Mr. Nishimura.
Yes, this is a very interesting point that you bring up, Director Sethy. One and the barriers to implementing a conversion from turf to drought tolerant. I will mention that one other area that I encourage the district to look at is the specific requirements that one must meet to qualify for the rebate. That is the number and type of plants that are being used to replace the lawn. Those, that spec does drive up the cost, right? I mean, the rebate, even at $2 a square foot, isn't going to pay for a complete reinstallation of a drought tolerant garden, right? That's not the intent of the rebate, is not to pay for 100%. So the homeowner has to make up that difference. One way the district could help homeowners with lower incomes is to really critically look at the requirements that are imposed by the program and say, what can we do to cut the cost of the new drought tolerant garden? I mean, can we reduce the number of plants, reduce the type of, or allow less expensive plants to be built, allow more permeable ground and fewer plants? Things like that can also help meet your desired goal of increasing the accessibility of the conversion of lawn to drought tolerant gardens. Thank you.
Those are really good comments. And I will note that at the Well Conference, there were a lot of Southern California districts and cities that are paying up to $4 or $5 a square foot. LA Water and Power is offering $5. but the feedback was that it's not moving the needle hard enough. We need to push the accelerator down so that we can do a lot more of this kind of stuff between now and the end of the decade if we really want to have an impact on lower water supplies. And the governor says he wants 500 million square feet done by the end of the decade. LA Water and Power's done around 50 million or about a little over 1,000 acres. I do think this is the wave of the future, and the other districts, cities that have implemented this so far, just a handful, are saying that this has a really good return on investment. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting forward their own monies for it. And so I think there are a lot of different issues, like Director Gunther was mentioning. Where does the financing come from? How much do you allocate, for every homeowner on a square footage basis? There's all kinds of things to go through that have yet to be analyzed. But the mere fact that we have a legislator who's willing to work with us, I think is important. So that's my report for the Alex Lee meeting. And thank you, Mr. Miyake, for suggesting we put this on a committee agenda. Do some exploratory work first and then bring it to the full board. Any last minute comments from other directors?
I would hope that if we go down this path, that we do a valid cost benefit analysis on what's being proposed and the actual amount of water being involved. I think we have some facts to deal with. It's a good feel-good project. Does it address our water needs? Solving the water problems of California a yard at a time, extraordinary challenge. When we're dealing with thousands of acre, tens of thousands of acre feet. We had our own program which reported that we, after several years, we're now saving less than 50 acre feet a year. As a cost, if we were to look at it, might be surprising.
Director Huang, did you have any comments this evening?
Nothing for me.
Director Akbari, any final comments from you?
I will mention I went to the Lake Del Valle East Bay Regional Park meeting Friday that week. Very interesting. Lots of members of the public. Sarah Palmer, Zone 7. Sethy, myself, staff. Give us an opportunity to talk to East Bay Regional Park about Lake Del Valle. Damage, got to see it firsthand quite a bit. They're doing some soul searching, I think, maybe a way to put it. They love that park. It should. Beautiful park. We did not really get into too much other than seeing what they had to say. It was very informative.
I thought one of the benefits of going on that trip was that we don't have these opportunities to share and build relationships with other board members. And we were able to do that with the other water agencies that were there, with the board members of the Park District. I spent the entire day there and went on the second field trip too. So I thought these opportunities for relationship building are really important, and they're too infrequent. The Park District does 6 of these tours a year where they invite the public in. These are public meetings, and you are able to meet with all of these other elected officials from around Alameda County. I'm wondering whether ACWD might want to do something like this, like maybe twice a year, where we invite in the public for a field trip of some kind. Maybe it's going into the Snow Regional Park and showing them Calaveras Dam and taking them over to the educational center in Snow, something like that. Take them to the desal plant, fish ladders. But I thought that was the most rewarding part of the whole day, honestly. Okay, if there are no other comments from board members, any staff members, no
So we
public,
have-
okay, then we will call the meeting adjourned at exactly 8:45 PM.